She got
So,
Chief.
yeah, just decided not to.
Good.
So I think she turned this off. She. I agree. Did you think? Yeah. This one. Yeah. Hello. She didn't hear you.
Hi, Pam. How are you?
Rushing.
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Traverse City Planning Commission of March 7, 2023. This meeting is called to order. For roll call, please.
Sure. Chairperson Hastings?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Hershey?
Here.
Commissioner Coburn?
Here.
Commissioner Deturi?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Martin?
Here.
Commissioner Teller?
Here.
Commissioner Arnold?
Here.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Here.
The only commissioner in absence is Commissioner David Knapp.
Thank you very much. Any announcements?
Yeah, we have a number of meetings and community engagement events coming up in the next week or so. So tomorrow, Wednesday, March 8th at 5 p.m., we have the Mobility Action Plan Leadership Team meeting in the committee room. Monday, March 13th at 7 p.m. is a joint City Commission Planning Commission meeting to discuss the TART Trail Improvement and Extension Project, the Mobility Action Plan, and the Master Plan. On Wednesday, March 15th, from 3 to 7 p.m. at the Alluvion in Common Grounds across the street, we'll be having the Mobility Action Plan Open House. Also that night, March 15th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. is a virtual public engagement event for the TART Trail project. That Zoom link is available on the project website on the city's page. On Thursday, March 16th, from 3 to 4:30 p.m. in the Governmental Center training room, we will be having a TART Trails community engagement event in person, focusing on the downtown segment. And later that night, Thursday, March 16th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., we'll be having another personal engagement session over at NMC Innovation Center, focusing on that portion from Bluego up to Eastern Avenue.
Great, thank you. Lots of opportunities to see what's going on in the city and weigh in. We'll move on then to first order of business is the approval of minutes for the last two meetings. Any comments, or we'll entertain a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Support.
We have a motion and a support. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, those are approved. Next, we're moving on to old business. This discussion on housing impacts on local industries. For introduction, Mr. Winter.
Yeah, thank you. So as you continue your exploration and discussions around housing, one of your annual goals for this year, specifically increasing housing opportunities, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to have some industry leaders come in and just discuss with you the impacts of housing on their industries, if you will, the perspectives that they're facing related to housing. And so we were able to get a few people from a couple different industry perspectives. So starting first, we will have Warren Call. I'll call him up in 1 second. Christine Bosley. We have Dawn Gildersleeve. Trevor Tkach. Is Trevor here today? He did not make it. Okay. We do have a letter from Dr. John Van Wagner. And unfortunately, Rob Richardson could not make it. So we'll begin with Warren Call, President and CEO of Traverse Connect. If you could just give a little quick introduction of your organization and opportunity to express what housing may mean to your industry.
Yes, thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Warren Call. I'm the CEO of Traverse Connect, Regional Economic Development, and the Chamber of Commerce Service for the Traverse City area. We work with businesses of all sizes, every industry. We work with nonprofits, public sector organizations such as Traverse City and the DDA, and a whole host of other organizations across the region and across the state in an effort to provide sustainable family sustaining careers in this region. That's our mission. One of the key things, as all of you know, that is a hurdle to that right now is certainly housing. Housing is the first thing that's mentioned by nearly every business and nonprofit leader that I speak with. It is usually the last thing mentioned at the close of every discussion as well, because it is really the beginning and the end of everything, right? If we don't have housing for our workforce, we don't have a workforce and we don't have a viable economy. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. A couple of things that I would share from our experience. Traverse Connect conducts a survey. We have about 8,000 member companies across northern Michigan. We have 1,000 member companies here in the Grand Traverse area. And we conduct a survey of the local companies, that 1,000 local companies, every quarter. And we ask them just a couple of key things. And one of those is, what is the biggest barrier to you operating and growing your business? And for the last 4 quarters in a row, we've only been doing this survey since last year, so we have 4 quarters of continual information. But for the last 4 quarters in a row, staffing/housing is the number one thing mentioned. It continues to be the biggest challenge that our businesses face, and that's at every level of business. And we get responses from very, very small businesses up to the largest employers in the region. And we hear from all of them that this is their key issue. It is one of those things that it cuts across every industry. It cuts across every income level and every type of job, from entry level to professional. It's simply a matter of dire concern for just about every business that we talk to, but also importantly for every employer of every type. So it's a huge issue for some of our larger nonprofit employers, such as Munson. It's a huge issue for our school systems. We're trying to work with Traverse City Public Schools, Interlochen Academy, and the Intermediate School District on some creative solutions, because they're really worried as they look at the demographic shift in their workforce. Retiring teachers at a certain income level, as they leave the workforce, the younger teachers, and not just teachers, but education employees of all levels, bus drivers, cooks, counselors, etc. Hiring someone younger, earlier in their career, there's very little likelihood that they can afford our current housing stock. So it's a really key issue, and that cuts across nursing, service work. It cuts across public safety. It's an issue for every industry, every nonprofit, and frankly every governmental agency in the region. I think that's especially important as you look at the fact that we are thankfully growing a little bit faster and in a positive mode compared to some other parts of the state. But because we're a popular place, because we're a destination, because we're a place that people with means do like to relocate to, which is a positive thing, you combine that with our demand in tourism, and it does mean that housing continues to go up. The cost of housing goes up at a level that is very hard for our workers at every level to keep up with. So it is really something that I think the city and other municipalities need to help deal with, and I really do believe it's an all hands on deck. All of our organizations working together to see if we can address this in some way. I would say that this is something that's larger, right, than Traverse City or our region. It's something that impacts pretty much every place in the country right now. But it is probably a little bit more acute here because of our perceived value and the attractiveness. And it's also something where if we can find collaborative ways to address it, that's going to set up us really well compared to other regions, other parts of the state, as we look to continue to improve our economy, improve our way of life, our quality of life for residents, and those those that want to be here. Couple things I want to highlight. It is not about any one type of housing. It's not about workforce housing or affordable housing or subsidized housing. It is everything from a 400 square foot studio apartment to a 4-bedroom house. It is really, and at every level, we have a shortage. So it's really having right now what you might refer to as a negative multiplier effect, because even a company that has full employment is struggling because their vendor or their supplier or their partner or the school that their kids go to or the hospital that they rely on is impacted negatively by the housing shortage. It's not an easy issue to deal with, but I do believe that through looking at creative ways to address a whole host of regulatory issues, tax issues, zoning issues, collaboration between the private sector and the public sector, we can at least explore creative ways to address it, and I think we need to. You'll hear some concerns from some others that this is the wrong way to address this topic. If we look at changing regulation, changing the way things are done, but I would argue that we have to look at everything on the table, and I wouldn't say that we have a silver bullet. There's no one way to do things. But I would say that the regions across the state that find effective ways to address the housing issue are going to be those that continue to thrive. And we want to be one of those regions that continues to thrive. And as I've mentioned here before, we unfortunately have had some instances and some reputation of being a NIMBYism type of region, not in my backyard. And I do believe that the way we move forward as a community collectively is to look for ways to be a YIMBYism, a yes in my backyard type of community. And I would offer our support to the Planning Commission and to other partners that want to engage in that with us. The last thing I would share with you is something I actually received today from U.S. Senator Gary Peters. Senator Peters signed onto a letter with 16 other Senate committee chairs and the majority leader of the U.S. Senate. And the letter is urging the president to address our nation's housing needs by using the whole of government approach, and that's a quote, the whole of government. The depth of our country's affordable housing crisis is undeniable. The crisis was exacerbated during the COVID pandemic, and we continue to learn about how safe and affordable housing can support Americans' health, well-being, and economic opportunity. I would echo those comments and, again, offer our support to anything we can do to help you as you work through creative solutions to address them. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, can you tell us about your appointment to the MISHDA board and how that might impact us, perhaps?
Yes, I'm excited about that. I think that our community should be proud of the fact that we were asked. I did not ask for that appointment. The governor's administration reached out to us, asking. They want Northern Michigan representation. They want Grand Traverse regional representation. It's been quite a long time since there was representation from up north on that board. So I am, while it's daunting, I'm excited to get involved. And as you may have seen from Director Corbin's quote in the press release, they specifically did it because they know that some MISHDA rules, regulations, box checking, et cetera, doesn't fit in rural and smaller communities up north. So helping them to look at different and creative ways of addressing this issue so that MISHDA programs are more relevant in our communities is my goal. And thankfully, I think that that's a goal that the board shares and that the administration shares, that they want to hear that viewpoint.
And you'll let the Planning Commission and the City Commission know
Absolutely.
how we can help you and
Yes.
how you can help us. Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Collins.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you. Next, we have Christine Bosley. She is the Human Resources Director for the City of Traverse City.
Thank you, Sean. Well, my expertise is not in housing at all, so I don't have any words of wisdom or solutions, but I was asked by Sean to just share my experience as a public employer, our local, to this building. And historically, well, I've been with the city since 2015, and And even in my early years here, we really didn't have a problem with recruitment or candidates. Over the last 5 years, we are spending more time searching for candidates. We have less and less candidates, especially for law enforcement and for our fire. And I used to just take applications for a week, and we'd have over 300, and now we're taking it for months, and we might have 10 or 15. So our vacancies aren't due to our benefits that we're offering. We are doing a classification study to look at our wages to try to draw more talent, but if they don't have a connection to our region, then they typically don't get hired. They can't find housing. We did interviews last week, and we were asking the candidates that aren't from this area, have you even begun looking for housing? Because the availability isn't there. And right now, for the city, we have a residency requirement. They have to live within 20 miles. And we've been asked by numerous union representatives to extend that. So we might be visiting that shortly. And then we're also looking at implementing policies for flexible workplace, anything to try to draw talent. So housing isn't the only issue. Daycare is also, but that's, a different topic. But I know that I worked with Benzie County for a short stint, and I know that the county commissioners worked with developers for the missing middle. So I'm not sure what we can do as a government here, but I know housing is a concern. In 5 years, I will have 50 people in the city that are eligible for retirement. That scares me. So that's all I have. Thanks. Any questions?
Not directly to you, but Chief Teller, do you want to add anything to this conversation and how it impacts your workforce?
Sure. Thank you, Christine, for your help tonight and all the other times as well. Thank you. And Christine hit on the subject of housing, and I can speak to my experiences with the fire department. Last summer, we hired a young man, late 20s, out of Southeast Michigan, firefighter paramedic, full-time, great guy, solid, a lot of skills. Just got engaged. He was up here while he was looking for housing. He was living in the back of his pickup in a tent at the state park. He could not find even rental housing on his breaks. And of course, staying at the station on shift. At the end of the day, he sat in my office and said, "Chief, I got to leave. I got to go back home. I've already called my chief." He says, "I can't pay $350,000 for a house that's only worth $185,000. He says, "I can't do it." And that's within that 20-mile residency requirement. There have been other people that we've hired up, and they've worked with us for up to a period 2 to 3 years. They just can't put it together, and then they return back south where they're from. It's a real struggle. As we have retooled our recruitment program over the past probably 8 months, we let them know very early, if they don't already, about the housing market, and it's going to be a struggle. So you have to start looking now. And Christine was also spot on. She said the ones that make it are ones that have family in the area. And typically they'll move in for 1, 2, or 3 years. And, with grandma and grandpa or an aunt or an uncle. And that's how they find their foot in the door in the housing market up here. But if they come in cold, they sell their house in another part of the state or even from out of state and come in, it's very rare that they can make it work. The last person that we hired, he's been with us about 2 months now, a young man from South Dayton City in Florida, just outside of, South Daytona, just outside of Daytona, small apartment. Sold their place down here, moved in with her parents, and father-in-law is a builder, so they'll probably be successful. It's it's pretty daunting. I was sitting in my office the other day when I tried out in 1989, I went up against 261 individuals. And now we're ones and twos and threes, and we just don't have that wide spectrum to pick from. Hopefully we can pick some good personnel, but it's very difficult. And, you know, for starter, people, I don't know how they do it. I can tell you the little house my wife and I bought in 2008 on 13th and Pine, we couldn't do it today. There's no way. We got in right before the housing market crashed, and there's no way we could afford it, even on my salary today. It's a real problem, and it's not just here, it's everywhere. All the other chiefs, there's 8 other fire departments in the county, they all struggle with housing, staffing, and hiring people from outside the area. It was a conscious effort to retool our recruitment program to make another step. Instead of firefighter 1 and paramedic, you could also be a firefighter 1 and 2, have those certifications through the state and be a basic EMT, which there are more to pick from, but more locally. And that's my hope, that we can pick up some of those locals, and the city will pay for them to go through paramedic school. So maybe they're living with mom. Maybe they're fresh out of college. Maybe they're renting a room with a couple of friends. However they can get it done. I'm hopeful that that'll work. It's going to take a little time to see. But, yeah, we're doing everything we can. And I'm not sure if that, at the end of the day, it's even going to be enough.
Thanks for giving those specific stories. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Mosley.
I would beg to differ. You talked about daycare. You know, I think daycare is just as important as all the rest is, and I think it's part of it too. Because you know, fine, you get here, you get the housing, you can get the job, and if you have children and they're not school age yet, where are they going? There are caps as to the number of children that daycares will take. And again, if you don't have daycare, how are you going to work? So I think, and they're having the same problem. They can't hire people to work for what they pay in daycare. So it's a systemic problem we have, for sure.
Absolutely.
Good point. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Dawn Gildersleeve. So Dawn is the president of the Downtown Traverse City Association, and I will let you provide your title for
Sure.
Cherry Republic.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm Dawn Gildersleeve, like Sean just said. Thanks, Sean. And I am the president of the DTCA currently, which is the Merchant Association for Downtown Traverse City. I'm also the general manager of Traverse City and Glen Arbor Cherry Republic. So I kind of did a little different twist. Thank you all. Everyone's kind of talking, but I'm kind of talking on a merchant side and how how we need housing to keep our city alive and to keep our doors open. So we need the constant flow of foot traffic year-round in this town. That would help our merchants. That would also help us be profitable 12 months out of the year versus 6 months out of the year, and try and get away from the seasonality that this town still has for us little merchants. The potential for using the upper spaces so that Traverse City is not dark at night, that we have lights on and people moving. Housing helps create a resilient community, and which means less economic downturns. It helps to contribute to the tax base, which is great for the city. More eyes, more ears, more people downtown, where we all love to shop, play, and live. So that's kind of all I had. That's quick. We also want to attract the younger. We want to attract younger people, and as I can talk about RHR which is based out of Glen Arbor, but handles 6 retail locations in the state of Michigan. And trying to get professionals here is the same issue the city is having, the same issue Munson is having, the same issue the schools are having. We can get them here, but if they don't have a connection, they don't have a house. Luckily, Cherry Republic has purchased, Bob Sutherland has purchased some houses out in the Maple City, Glen Lake area. We have people living in those houses and they're professionals, because there is nothing. So it's hard to recruit people, and it's hard. At the same time, we can hire retail workers. That's because they were living with mom and dad, living with grandma, living with an aunt, an uncle, a cousin. So, yeah, that's what I got.
Thanks. Do you have any, I'm interested in what you said about keeping a store open year-round versus just seasonal. Is there any sort of
Profitable
Sure.
year-round. So, wintertime is tough still up here. And so if we can get more people downtown also, housing where those upper floors are dark, because they're short-term rentals possibly. If we can get, and so they might be full on the weekend, great, but Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday, it's dark. Those floors are all dark. And so, then it just gets kind of sketchy. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, more eyes is a good thing. And the more people we have in town, the more businesses that can open up and
Correct.
be
Yep. And then they feel more attached, and it's more about being. I kind of wrote something about resilient or residential stability, which residential stability is someone who's been in some place for 12 months. So we don't see that. We are losing that, and so we need that because then they have social connections. They're engaged in the community. So.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Don, I do
yes.
have a question for you. The Planning Commission received a very pointed letter or email this week, and one of the questions was about merchants that own businesses or actually own their buildings, and knowing that you guys just purchased the new building that you guys are moving into.
We are not moving into.
I'm sorry?
We are not moving into it.
You're not moving into
We are
it?
not. No.
Oh, okay, so I missed that.
We have a new concept store that we're working on down there. We sign our lease in the Whiting building, so we
Okay.
are staying there for 5 years.
Oh.
The cost of building is really
Cost prohibitive.
Another thing. It's just another thing, yeah.
and when you ask them to come back and take things out, it comes back even more. But we
Yes.
were trying to do some housing in that building also. So
And that was my question, was
Yeah.
if that was something you guys were considering as a way to provide housing for your employees.
absolutely, and it's not out the door; it's just delayed. We are delaying that, so hoping some things kind of level off.
No, we appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gildersleeve.
Yeah, thank you, Don. So yes, I apologize. Trevor Takak was supposed to be here, President CEO of TC Tourism, to provide a perspective on the service industry in the area. Rob Richardson was not able to confirm from Munson Healthcare, but if we get the chance to bring him back, we will. And Dr. John Van Wagner, Superintendent of Traverse Area Public Schools, was already committed to another meeting tonight, but on your desk is a letter that he did send. We will include this in the packet with the minutes for everyone to see. And for the time being, for those present, Laura or Ms. Mattis will read it into the record.
All right. This is a letter of support from Dr. Van Wagner. Dear Commissioners, I would like to express my support and appreciation as the City of Traverse City begins to discuss and consider opportunities to resolve the lack of affordable housing within the city. As the superintendent of the largest school district in the region, as well as one of the top employers, it is clear that finding affordable housing has limited our ability to attract and retain staff and students. TCAPS represents approximately 1,200 staff members. Over the past few years, the district has experienced increasing difficulty in attracting new teachers to the region and to the education sector, and the education sector is anticipating a wave of retirements in the coming years. Frequently, employment offers are made to teachers and subsequently declined due to the lack of available and affordable housing. This challenge will undoubtedly be significant in the educational needs to all the students in our region. TCAPS also represents around 9,000 students. In the TCAPS district alone, over 40% of our student population qualifies for free and reduced meals, and nearly 500 students are homeless. Over time, TCAPS has experienced a steady decline in enrollment, some of which can be attributed to families leaving the area for more affordable housing. Thank you for your consideration as you continue to examine the impact affordable housing has on long-term health of the community. Please feel free to reach out if you would like any additional information or discuss ways TCAPS can help with initiatives to mitigate this challenge. Sincerely, Dr. John Wagner.
Thank you for that. And thank you to Dr. Von Wagner. Okay, with that, is there anything else to summarize, or should we open
Nope, that
to?
was just more of kind of a study session item to bring some perspective to you all, then continuing your discussions.
Right, okay. Well, with that, we'll pause for public comment If anybody would like to speak on this issue, please come to the mic, state your name, address, whether you're a Traverse City resident, you'll have 5 minutes.
Jim Carruthers, 218 West 11th Street, and I am a Traverse City resident. Housing has been something we've been dealing with for the 35 years that I've lived here. When I first moved here, it was cheaper, but it was hard to find a job that paid you well. It was hard to find decent housing. It's nothing new. This is Traverse City. We're a resort town with an emerging economy that's trying to attract year-round people. We've always been that way. So I think wages is a huge issue that is causing people challenges to live here because we're just not paying people to be able to keep up with what it costs to live here. And also, housing is a regional problem. It's not just Traverse City. We've gone through 2 censuses. That's 20 years. We've grown maybe by 100 people. The region's growing, but we're not. And I know you're talking later in the agenda about zoning opportunities, which I will speak later on, but we're not growing as a city, and good or bad. But I think you also need to be mindful of the residents that live in Traverse City. There's 15,000 of us that have chosen to live here, that have struggled to live here, that have made a go at living here. And some of us have done well, some of us haven't. But we live in neighborhoods for a reason. We have backyards. We have walkable amenities to our homes. We enjoy our city. We pay the taxes, and we've moved here for a reason. You can call us NIMBY all you want, but we're NIMBY because we value our neighborhood. A lot of us moved here from urban areas for various reasons, many reasons. I didn't move here to be an NIMBY. I moved here because I had family here, my family summered here, and I landed here, wasn't planning on staying, and I've stayed, and I've made a go of it. But I care about my neighborhood. I served on this city for 22 years because I care about this city. And we have a good thing going. I don't want to destroy that. There's reasons why people want to live in Traverse City, and it's for our tree-lined neighborhoods, streets with backyards, and walkable to our downtown. We can build more housing, but the majority of the housing that we've built over the past few years in our commercial districts is now being turned into vacation and short-term rentals. I think you reported at your annual meeting a few months ago that of the 900 units that were built here, around 380 of them have been turned into short-term rentals. So just because it's not working in the commercial districts, why are we pushing it now into the residential districts to increase density? A few ADUs here and there, and the grandfathered in duplexes are fine, and a few more we can handle. But not everybody wants 4 new units built right next to their Victorian home. There's a challenge with that. So I'm glad Senator Peters is asking President Biden to do everything he can to make this happen. Housing is an issue in every single town and every single city in this state and in this nation. It's not just us. But the value of our real estate's going up because we're a tourist town. We're desirable. We, as government folks and planners, we don't regulate the real estate markets. It's been said for years that we have an acute labor shortage, and that's not just because of housing. It's because it's hard to live here, yes, but there's just not jobs. So we have a long way to go, and workforce housing. I mean, we heard from Traverse Connect this tonight. They touted Trailside 45 as being a great opportunity to collaborate in our community for the future. And originally, that was $795 to $895 a month housing units. Well, we got slapped in the face, and they didn't know that, but it happened. We collaborate with people, and we get screwed. So, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we need to really figure this out. And there's 100 people still living in the woods over here. I volunteer for an organization that bought a duplex in this town. We house 8 homeless alcoholic men. My husband is a light manufacturer in northern Indiana. They're buying up housing to house their employees. That's one of the models, is employers are going to have to start figuring this out by housing them. Cherry Republic is starting to talk about that. We hear about Shorts up in Bel Air. We're going to have to start business owners are going to have to start buying housing if they want housing for their employees. That's not what most business models want, but that's what businesses are doing so they can guarantee employment. So we're at a very challenging state. I mean, I never thought my real estate was going to increase in the value that it has in 35 years, but I can't sell because where am I going to go? Like most of us can't sell. because where are we going to go? The region's growing, but Traverse City can grow, but the growth that we've allowed to happen isn't growing how we want it to grow. We're providing very high-end condos and vacation rentals. I just don't want to see our neighborhoods destroyed. That's what's the character of this town, is our residential neighborhoods and our strong downtown that's been strong for a long time. So I've been involved, I'm going to stay involved, and I'm going to help, but call us NIMBYs all you want, but I think a lot of us just appreciate our downtown neighborhoods, and we've worked hard at managing them. We own 100-year-old homes that have constant maintenance. We put hard money and sweat and tears into our homes. Just don't ruin it for the neighbors. And please communicate with the neighbors. You, Planning Commission, Ms. Deturi was at our Central Neighborhood meeting last month or a few weeks ago. So thank you for being there. So, but please talk to the neighborhood and the neighborhood associations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carruthers.
Hi, my name is Carrie Noga, and I live at 442 Hamilton Street in Traverse City. Not sure if this is the right public comment window, but I'll go ahead. I did want to speak to some of the potential zoning changes. I do live in one of the double lot houses on the map that was included in today's packet. And 2.5 years ago, I emailed the Planning Commission as I think these changes might have been first proposed. Some of the commissioners sitting here tonight were on the body then, but some weren't. So I think it might be most effective if I just simply read what I wrote on October 28th, 2020. On behalf of my husband and I, dear Traverse City Planning Commissioners, we are writing in support of the amendments to city ordinances that would allow for 2 dwellings on larger lots, allow for ADUs for each, and lower lot size minimums to be considered at what was then your November 4th meeting. This has particular relevance for our family. We have lived at 442 Hamilton Street on a double lot since 2003. Our house straddles the 2 lots, though, so the property can't be split evenly. Meanwhile, the rear 20% of our property along the back alley is virtually unused. As the city has pursued ADU policies, we have thought in the past we would like to build another residence/ADU there. We have a son with a disability who is now 15, now 17, and that could offer a semi-independent living situation for him in the future. In the meantime, we could rent it to help pay for it. About 2 years ago, so that would have been 2018, we investigated the rules more closely. We had thought, being on a double lot, we might be able to build a second residence by right. Not so. And it goes into a little bit of the weeds here, but basically, as per the ordinance at the time, we would have had only 200 square feet for the ADU. It was suggested that we add on to our primary residence in order to increase the maximum allowable square footage for the ADU, or physically move our house into one of the 2 lots to free up the other. Neither option makes sense in terms of cost. We were also told we could build over the garage, but that limits access for people with disabilities and does not take advantage of the unused rear portion of the property. In short, we felt stymied by the impact of the various requirements and wound up doing nothing. These proposed changes seem to simplify the requirements greatly and offer our community a way to create the missing middle housing that people with disabilities, single and older individuals desire. Smaller, accessible, less expensive homes, less yard to maintain, yet in town with proximity to city services, beta, shopping, and medical care. We urge you to support these changes and advance them to the City Commission. And so today, on March 7th, 2023, I'd reiterate the message and hope that I'm not back here in 2026-ish, my math is right, asking again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noga.
Debbie Reggiani, 422 North Elmwood. I'm a city resident. So it amazes me that the Planning Commission continues to discuss increasing density in our city neighborhoods, as well as some zoning reforms, when you really haven't set goals based on a vision that still needs to be generated from the new master plan, and you still haven't taken the time to gather valuable input from the city residents. So now you bring in some city leaders to show a need for affordable housing. We already know that affordable housing is needed. But what we don't know is how it will be done and at what cost it will impact our neighborhoods. What you have implied is that by increasing density, it will provide housing for the missing middle. Where's your data to support that claim? I also don't think it will solve the problem of affordable workforce housing in Traverse City, as you have not determined a way in which to keep big investors out of purchasing properties to build their mega buildings for short-term rental profits. Where are the conditions? There's no guarantees that the units built will be workforce affordable. Why do I say that? Well, just look around at some of the things you've already permitted to be built. The Sox condos on Randolph Street, breakwater on Union between Front and Grandview Parkway, and the development of the property behind Fogarelli's, to name a few. In citing a Record Eagle article from December 2021, our short-term rentals are run by management companies and out-of-town owners. So what has been done to address the above-average amount of short-term rentals owned and run by management companies, which has a direct impact on the availability of workforce housing? In the February 2023 publication of the TC Ticker, the new owners of the downtown Masonic Building state, when deciding how to use the space for long-term as an affordable housing option, and after considering the price of the building, the cost of construction, the taxes being uncapped, there's no way to make it possible for this to happen. So I ask, at what cost will your goals and objectives be to our established neighborhoods? Who's looking out for us?
Thank you, Ms. Reggiani.
Mary Mills, 424 North Elmwood, Traverse City resident. I'm going back to the request for the proposal on the master plan. And I'm quoting here, it's expected that the community engagement process adheres to requirements of the Traverse City Public Participation Strategy. So I looked up the strategy, and it says different types of stakeholders will need different levels of engagement that should be identified with the following categories. And I quote, those affected. And examples were given affected residents and property owners. Those impacted. Examples were given of neighboring residents or property owners, neighborhood associations, business groups. So then I looked on the website regarding the master plan, and I quote, community leaders should use the master plan to ensure their decisions are consistent with the vision that Traverse City community residents created. And how does master plan relate to the zoning? And I quote, the zoning ordinance implements the master plan. And as outlined in the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, a direct relationship between the two documents is required. Only when the two documents are in sync can they be effective planning tools. Residents, neighborhoods, neighborhood associations are repeatedly mentioned as essential to the master plan process. And yet, these stakeholders have been excluded from this discussion on housing zoning reform. The current 2023 Planning Commission annual goals are the same goals as was outlined in 2022. These goals are not in sync with the master plan. How can they? These goals were developed long before the current master plan process began. Please fulfill your obligations to the residents and neighborhoods of Traverse City. Include them in the discussion. Decide on goals once the master plan is complete and everyone has had the opportunity to give their input. Please do not try to convince us that a predetermined set of goals based on someone else's vision is best for Traverse City's neighborhoods and their residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills.
Good evening. I'm Holly Behrens. I live at I should spell my last name. It's B as in boy, EHRENS. I live at 12909 South Sunset Drive in Traverse City. And I've been kind of coming to a lot of meetings the last couple of months just to gather information. I've heard a lot of discussion about, I think at one of the meetings they said they estimate they need like 1,100 units to solve the housing shortage. And I've played it around in my mind, and I honestly don't understand how anybody thinks we're going to solve that problem within our 8 square miles of Traverse City. That ship has already sailed. The real estate values in Traverse City are astronomical, and we're not going to be able to afford to put workforce housing in the city limits. So I'm asking you to think out of the box on this one and to work with outlying areas. I think of Camp Pugsley. I think of the Kmart debacle out in Acme. I think of a lot of buildings that are not being utilized that we've developed. We have 2 malls that are half empty. I was going to try to take a drive through the outlet mall out behind Oriana tonight, and I didn't get a chance, but the last time I was there, there were shuttered stores. There's hardly anything in there. And I know it's really expensive to reclaim old real estate, but there has to be, other communities are doing it, and there has to be some way we can do that. And all I hear is build new, build new, build new. We're in a crisis with climate change, and we're using old technology, and we have no idea in the next 10 years what technology we're going to need going forward. And it's really expensive to rehab old buildings to new technology. But we have to step off sometime and try to reclaim what we've already developed. There's a schoolhouse for sale across the street, and I know there's a wonderful little apartment building up in Elk Rapids that was an old school that they've turned into apartments. So I'm hoping maybe we can think out of the box, get creative, maybe ramp up the beta bus system so we can offer some shuttle services to people that live in outlying areas to get them into Traverse City instead of building parking decks. I think there's a lot of options that need to be explored and not just building from scratch and giving developers more tax breaks and tax credits to develop an already becoming overdeveloped area. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Behrens.
Hello, my name is Baja. I'm at 620 Pine Street, a new resident. I would have nothing prepared because I just showed up here tonight. But I just wanted to reiterate the statement about looking at multiple options being really fantastic. And with the zoning, I'm actually on a lot that can't be subdivided right now based on a couple square feet. It's really tough. And would like to, because personally I don't want to mow the lawn. And I'd like to be able to provide a space for others to be able to build and to be able to do that as well. So it's not a well thought out. I didn't bring a really great structure like everybody else here, but I do want to go on record and just say I think as you're going through a really complex series of decisions here, obviously looking at a range of issues is fantastic. I understand you have a really tough task ahead of you. But as you're looking at zoning and thinking about lot sizes, I know that we could contribute to supporting others and being able to come into downtown if that did change, just by having a lot that's sitting there empty and every single neighbor says, why haven't you sold it? Why haven't you developed on it? It's like, because of this little bit of square footage, I can't. So just noting that. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no other people coming to the mic, we'll close public comment. Thank you all for speaking. Next order of business is the we're going to get back to housing opportunities later in the meeting, but this next item is a public hearing for the 2023-24 to the 2028-29 capital improvement plan public hearing. For introduction, Mr. Winter.
Yeah, thank you. Introduced at the beginning of February was the capital improvement plan, which is a 6-year plan for capital projects throughout the city. Tonight's public hearing, I want to reinforce, is for the Planning Commission to determine whether or not the capital improvements plan is consistent with the master plan. That's the purpose of the public hearing and the decision that the Planning Commission has to make. Unfortunately, it is not the time to be adding new projects to the capital improvements. That is a process that's quite lengthy and sophisticated. It takes, if you look on the schedule that was on your desk, it starts in September. Once it comes to the Planning Commission in February, all the city staff is locked out of it. So we're not at that point of going through and vetting the projects and coordinating them and figuring out the cost estimates, the maintenance burden, all that kind of stuff. And I bring that up because a number of projects were presented to you and requested to be added at the last meeting. The good news is that even though they're not able to go into the CIP right now, CIP is just a plan. That doesn't mean they can't happen. So the CIP is a tool for the city manager and the city commissioners to use when they create their budget. Just because something is in the CIP doesn't mean it gets budgeted. So the residents on Jefferson and Madison can probably attest to this. They spent 10 years with their street reconstruction sitting there in the CIP. And it doesn't mean that things that aren't in the CIP can't get budgeted. We heard last meeting that the city has a surplus that they can work with. So what we need to do is make sure that when we send the CIP to the city commission, that we include those items that were requested of you so that they can, even though it's not in the CIP, be aware of it and then put it in the budget. So for reference, as we told people last year, we need to hear these projects probably by October to start them in the process so they can either let staff know directly, or if they let an elected representative know, have them tell the city manager part of all these meetings so we can get it. And the good news is, speaking with the manager, the mayor, a number of department heads, all those projects that were mentioned are on the radar and they're supportive of them. They have city engineering getting the cost estimates right now, working on all that stuff. So just wanted to address that because that came before this meeting, that the city commission will be made aware of these and hopefully.
Thank you very much. So from the public hearing point of view, we just go to commissioners, any other comments, and then open it up for the public hearing? Is there any other, did you want to refresh our memory on what those items were that were discussed last meeting?
I don't have them all in front of me, but I did write them down. They're on my desk. I know the big one was the sidewalk in Eastern. So we already have the cost estimates for that.
Okay.
The city engineer, even though he's out on medical leave, called me today to discuss it. 160,000 that they're working on, things like that. So I don't have them in front of me, but I do have them all written down.
Okay. So that was sidewalks for like Eastern Peninsula Drive and
Yeah,
Milliken?
connecting from Peninsula to Milliken right there, where there isn't one.
Right.
Which, as a city engineer noted, it's low-hanging fruit, and it's a high priority because it's already the go path there. So that's why city manager had him work and get that data, start pulling that data to collect it so that we can hopefully get that installed this year. That was the.
Did I also hear that that was originally in the Safe Routes to School
Yes.
plan, and funds ran out? Is that what happened?
Yeah, cost exceeded funds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like Pine Street, south of 14th Street, that section of sidewalk got taken. Section. Number of other.
There's also adding Carver to the Boardman Loop and getting a connection with 10th and Lake to the Boardman Loop. This helps get all of our neighbors into the mobility track so that not everybody has to drive their cars. Right now, you have to wheel over private property to get onto it.
Right, and that's being further studied by the mobility and TART trails as well, those
Yeah,
connections.
we hope the public comes out on 15th next week for that open house because there's the gap in infill identification, sidewalks, that's going to be part of that. The level of priority, which ones are high priority, low priority. And same thing with all those connections with non-motorized. Definitely want to hear the public's.
Yeah, I'm fine with going through the process of pushing the CIP that was originally put forth before the board and then just saying, we also highly recommend these, but that they're not part of that. Because again, like you said, it's just a plan. It's not the actual budget. It's just a tool for the budget. And we have 2 city commissioners here that will just carry that information forward and testify that these are really important issues and we want to put this in this year's budget. And so I think that makes the most sense to me. It makes the most logical sense, as well as the fact that the Mobility Action Committee is like looking at that area extensively. So it kind of, the timing is working out really well. I wouldn't want to try to put it into a plan last minute that might only get adjusted because of a suggestion that comes forward at a public engagement session that they may want a shared street instead of like just sidewalks. So I think it's really important to, just for context, to be able to go to the public a couple times this spring and then bring that forward to the city's budget in the summer. Is it July? When does
It'll
that
be
happen?
starting probably.
It starts soonish. Okay,
Departments are working on their budget now.
cool. So the timing works out really well.
That's why we're holding the public hearing now.
Gotcha.
It was almost like I heard the formation of a motion in there. But
Yes, it kind of was. Well, I don't like to do it too soon because
Right.
in case other people, but okay, seeing eyeballs.
I would
move-
wait until you hold the public hearing.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
Done.
still have to open up the public hearing to hear input on whether or not the CIP is consistent with the master plan in terms of location, character, and context.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I get that out of order sometimes. Sometimes it's motion, support, and then public comment before the vote, but in this case, we'll go with public comment. We'll open now for public comment on the CIP being presented and considered tonight. Anybody who would like to speak on it, please approach the mic.
Tim Werner, 608 West 7th Street, city resident. And I'm attending tonight just as a reminder for the topic that was just being discussed. So I could have rattled off, Carver, Franklin, 10th Street, at Lake, for the Boardman Lake Trail loop connections for all of our neighbors to be able to access the wonderful new loop. And then Milliken Avenue, as well as Eastern Avenue and the sidewalk on Eastern Avenue that needs to be installed. I'm sure you're all much more diplomatic than I am as Mr. Grumpy. I would just vote no on the CIP if it doesn't include them, to make sure it's a very clear message that it needs to be included. But being more diplomatic, I see the merits of just putting a nicely worded letter in there that says these items should also be included. But be included, not just considered. Because these aren't new topics, new items. They've been known about for a very long time. They have. And it's easy just to kick the can another year. But especially for Eastern and Milliken, that's, well, you can put all sorts of words on it. Strongly discouraged, because when all that traffic from the peninsula every day is coming across Eastern and down Milliken, and during school hours, both entering and exiting school, it's an accident waiting to happen. So it's our responsibility, I feel, to do that better. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Werner. Seeing no other comments, I'll close public comment and turn back to commissioners. How maybe we'd like to word it with, we're approving this with the addition of, et cetera?
I didn't see a motion in the packet. So I can just wing it as long as everybody's okay with that.
Yes.
Yeah. You may want to consider motion to approve
Yeah.
capital improvements plan
As-
fiscal year 2023-24 through 2028-29. And then with
additional language.
Additional language requesting that the following items be included in the 2023-2024 budget. That would be the Eastern Avenue sidewalk connection, proofs, filling in the sidewalk on Milliken Avenue, the Franklin Street connection to the Boardman Lake Loop, connection at Carver Street to the Boardman Lake Loop, and improved access at 10th Street to the Boardman Lake Loop.
Okay. So I move that the CIP for 2023, 2024 to 2028, 2029 be approved with the recommendation that Eastern Avenue, Milliken Avenue, Franklin Street connection to Boardman Lake Loop, Carver connection to Boardman Lake Loop, and improved access at 10th Street to Boardman Lake Loop be considered by the City Commission as part of the budget
For fiscal year 23,
for fiscal year 2020.
23/24.
Support.
Support
I
by
heard,
Trev.
I heard support. Excellent. Ready to vote. I have a motion and support. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on then to housing opportunities. Possibilities of housing opportunities through zoning reform. We have a map that will be displayed for introduction, Mr. Winter.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things that you all have listed, one of your opportunities to expand housing opportunities in the city is reducing minimum lot size to allow potential opportunities for additional lot splits, as well as reducing minimum lot width. Currently, right now in the R1B, the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet with a 35-foot minimum width. Some areas, those primarily north of Munson, at the base of the peninsula, require a 45-foot minimum width. What was proposed in the past has been a reduction to 4,000 square feet and making them all 35 feet as the minimum width and getting rid of that exception. Ms. Baja, who spoke earlier, her property is one that we've discussed specifically. I think we're all aware of it with the blue house in the back and just an empty corner. And it is a few square feet short of being able to be split. At that new minimum, that's an example of a lot that could be split and a new house that could be built in the neighborhood. Similarly, R1A has a minimum area of 9,000 square feet and a 90-foot width. It has been proposed as a possibility of reducing that to 7,000 square feet with a 70-foot minimum width. So when I was out last week, Ms. Mattis worked with our GIS coordinator, Jerry Swanson, to begin creating a tool to help you visualize what those opportunities might look like. Now, I want to give the caveat that it is somewhat limited. This is just going off dimensions and not ground truthing each and every one of these parcels, so it looks way more horrific than it actually is. For instance, you may have lots that, yes, if you reduced it down to 4,000 minimum square feet, by that dimension alone, it could be split, but it might not have twice the lot width necessary. Or there may be an existing structure that would prevent a split from happening. And probably the most limiting reality is you also have to have a willing property owner who wants to do that and has the means to split and or build another house. So it's not a perfect tool, and it's something that we're going to keep refining. Again, we just got it put together on Thursday. By Thursday when the packet went out, I'm still learning it since I was out. So I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Mattis so she can show you how this can be used as a tool to realize potential opportunities.
So, hi everyone. I'm just going to give a little overview on how to use this tool. This map is intended just as a visual aid to help assist the Planning Commission in their discussion related to housing opportunities, and specifically through opportunities that are possible in the R1A, R1 districts. So in the packet, you'll have a link, and if you click on that, this page will appear like so. And it'll load. Good. But right here, you see a little sneak peek of a selector toolbar that just shows you that it does in fact exist. This little arrow on the left-hand side. That isn't what you need for this map right here, because right now we are on the housing overview. So this is similar to the zoning map. What you're seeing here are just R1A and R1B parcels, and they're colorized based on different things. Like Sean said, there's different minimum lot widths for the size and then lot like frontages sizes. And so what we did is we looked at the minimum dimensions and we doubled that for R1A and R1B. And then for the proposed reductions in square footage, and we doubled that and showed what those areas are possible for both R1A and R1B, along with the lot frontages going from 90 feet to what if it was 35, reflecting a 45 minimum lot frontage to a 35 minimum lot frontage. And the same with R1A parcels. And so if you are interested to see your property, what you could do is go to a random house. I'll pick on mine because I don't want to pick on another person's. But if you go over and you click on it, one of the first things that will appear is, what is this parcel? It's R1A or it's R1B, and it'll give a little bit of an introduction to what are the existing standards for, in this case, an R1B parcel. And it'll even link it to the zoning code. And there's a little explanation of why we're looking at this. Now, similar to what you guys may remember from the CIP, if there are things that are stacked, there's like a 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4. And so if you click on that, it'll take you to a little bit more information on that particular parcel. So for example, this one shows R1B parcels that are greater than 8,000 square feet. It shows you the address, the property class that's assessing, the parcel ID if you wanted to look it up on Text Parcel Viewer, zoning, frontage, depth, and also the total parcel square foot area. And so that's the case for all of the parcels. So you can feel free to look around and see exactly what it is. Now, I just do want to note that there is a slight transparency to all of these layers. So if you zoom right in on a layer, you can sometimes make out the shapes of the houses depending on the color. But if they are multiply stacked, then you won't see it as much. And also the color might not perfectly reflect. For instance, this color doesn't show up perfectly on the legend, and that's because it's got a stack of multiple characteristics within it. So just something to keep note. Then if you want to move to the interactive parcel selector, what you'll see here is the outline of Traverse City, but there's nothing showing, and that is the intent because this is your map to design. That's where you go back to this ghostly parcel selector. And so say that you were curious, okay, where are all of the R1A parcels that are between 7,000 square foot and 18,000 square foot? There they are. And so you're able to design the map based on different square footages that you're interested in. Maybe you just want to see everything that's over 7,000 square. Oh, before you get to that, you can see on the right-hand corner, there's an actual count of the number of parcels that are in your query. And you can do that for all of these different ones. We've got R1A and R1B frontages and square feet. And so what you can do is play around with it and see how many parcels and geographically where those parcels are located in, just based on whatever parameters that you're the most curious about. So that's a little tutorial. When you want to collapse this, just hit the arrow and it'll go away. This collapsible sidebar will only ever interact with this map, which is the second interactive parcel selector tab on the bottom. And then if you are curious, if you click on something here and you want to know more about that particular parcel, you can click on this and it will give you just basic information like frontage and parcel. But you can still click on that to soothe the curious mind on that. But that's it.
Cool.
Very nice.
So when you open up the map originally, and we're looking at mostly colored properties, is that to say that most of the properties in Traverse City have opportunities for splits, multiple units, things, if there are zoning changes were to move through?
Anything that's indicated there does have those queries that are defined. So if it's over 8,000, over 10,000 square feet in that thing, in those certain parameters. But like Sean said, this doesn't take into account certain factors for splitting it. So for instance, some of the housing placements might not allow different parcels to be split. Again, you need an owner. Zoning changes would require also that the owner wants to change in that way. So If they don't want to change it, they don't have to change it, but it's another opportunity. But not all of the parcels shown here can be split just based on that. There's several other setbacks, housing, and things of that nature. And when you do zoom in enough, you can see all of these parcels here. Those are still R1B. They're not meeting that criteria. So it's just not indicated with a filled-in color.
And as an important criteria for the parcels shown here, if you are splitting it, it would have to preserve frontage on the main access road for both parcels. So in this case, you'd end up with, in this neighborhood, a lot of two skinny vertical parcels side by side, except for ones that actually front on, say, Pine or Union Street, and then you would be able to split them front to back. So two skinny parcels based on our own setback ordinances generally wouldn't result in buildable lots, but it could for those lots that are on the corners.
Correct. And that's where this interactive parcel layer can really come in a little bit more handy, because you can also see exactly where those certain frontages are along with those lot sizes, just to see it a little bit better. But you did bring up something important that I forgot to mention. This does not take into account corner lot sizes. So we base it off of parcel frontages, which is based on the assessing department, which is based on where their address is. And so if I was going to try to show a map that showed all of the parcel frontages and depths that were over a certain amount, you'd have every single parcel in the city. So corner lots are not excluded from this query.
So can you go back to the other tab, the housing opportunity overview? So an example of that, look right here. I'm going to step away from the mic, so I'll try to talk loud. This one exceeds 8,000 square feet. It could be split if we go down to 4,000, but it doesn't meet the frontage addressed 12th Street frontage. Go ahead and close this. Split it this way and reassign Pine Street, then it could possibly be that. You'll notice that in the central neighborhood, a lot of the north-south streets, as we talked before, have done that historically. See right here. They had additional frontage due to the width on that corner lot, or depth.
All right. All right, so the colors don't mean that the opportunity is always there. It's just that these are the size lots that are available in the town, and depending on where they face and what's feasible, then the numbers are actually quite a bit lower where the opportunities lie.
Yeah, especially when it comes to splits. But again, another thing you all have considered in your proposal is allowing 2 homes on a lot that is twice the minimum size without having to split it. So if you incorporate that proposal, then that gives you more opportunity. Again, if it's twice the minimum size and established setbacks are met, things like that.
And that could solve the problem of having both houses essentially be fronting on the main street if they're still on the same parcel that still has the same street frontage.
Yeah, like at the corner of 14th and Cass, I guess would be the southwest corner. There's 2 homes there, right? And they're on one lot, but that's a multifamily district that allowed 2 homes with that density. But that's an example of what it could look like without having to split it. Same thing at the southwest corner of Pine and 14th.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts?
I suppose that this isn't a question that couldn't have been asked in other contexts, but it is shown in rather stark reality on these maps, particularly looking at the area at the base of Old Mission Peninsula. In areas where, just due to how the lots have been drawn and split up over the years, you have irregular lot sizes, and even if we change, say, a frontage metric, it might not still result in just a proportioned parcel that is well suited to development. Is there any way that we can reduce barriers to shifting property lines between 2 willing owners to increase the availability of parcels to be redeveloped?
Yeah, I mean, we allow boundary line adjustments between willing owners, whether or not there's an exchange of currency as a result of that is between them, but if both property owners submit that application, we do boundary line adjustments. Yeah, it's a pretty easy process. So, but I would encourage you to just kind of play around with it. As I said, this just went live towards the end of last week, so we've been talking throughout the week of tweaks, and we'll keep making tweaks to it. So save this website as a bookmark. Just, again, hopefully it's a tool to help you realize opportunity that exists.
So I'd just like to say that I was around when we were talking about this in 2020 or whatever, whoever had that letter. This has been on the table for a long time. And so it's unfortunate that it's now at the time that the master plan is being considered, but it has been under discussion for a long time. I don't think anybody believes that this is the answer to 1,100 missing housing units. And I think those people who think the sky is falling about this need to know how hard this is. Twice, I live in a C district, and twice my husband and I have paid an architect to design another unit to be on our property. It was supposed to be for my mother to stay with us. Twice, we backed off because of the reality of the costs. The last time it was going to be $306 a square foot to build, and my taxes were going to double. And that, you know, for the average Joe is a big hit. And so there will be some things that are helped by this, but this is not the answer. This is just one tiny little piece. So people like this who have the opportunity and have the means to do it can provide a house for a teacher or something. So it's not that the whole city is going to suddenly become overrun with extra houses, I'd have to say.
No, I definitely agree. It's not an easy process. It's not, you know, we're not, like we say, we're not trying to provide, we don't believe that we have any silver bullets to solve the housing problem. But what we can do as far as planners is remove barriers that stop the opportunities from being available to people that can do something about.
And I think the other thing, and Mr. Hassing and I have talked about this, I think the fear for everybody who is fearful, and myself included, because I've been at this now long enough to know that your best intentions can also be abused. And so I do think as we move forward on these possible zoning changes, we need to keep in mind owner occupancy as an important part for many of these. That kind of self-regulates. I don't want to see deep pocket people moving into town and buying up city blocks and turning it into, you know, quadruplexes. Is that what you say? Multiverses. You know, I don't want that either, and I don't think anybody up here wants that. So this is a hard, long process. Those of you who think this won't extend past the new master plan haven't been watching hard enough. Our short-term rental stuff took 2 years to do. This takes a long time. And so don't worry. We're going to do the best we can to make more options available for people who can utilize those things. But it's not going to, and we're going to do our best to keep investors from coming and entering neighborhoods and taking over. That's hard to do.
Well, we received an email, an article regarding a recommendation for home occupancy or owner occupancy. It was in Minneapolis. Minneapolis, in a 10-year plan, has said that they want to do away with single-family exclusionary zoning. And the article was about North Minneapolis. I grew up in the Twin Cities in St. Paul, in Minneapolis. And North Minneapolis is it's an African-American community. It was redlined, so no banks or insurance companies would do business there. And the black community did not have the opportunity to build generational wealth with real estate the way other communities did. And so they have an opportunity now to start. And if outside investors come in, buy up all the property, they don't have largely, they don't have any way to compete with that. And it's, so I agree with the author that in a situation like North Minneapolis, owner occupancy would be a great overlay system to try to mitigate that problem and give the community itself the opportunity to build the generational wealth that can be attained through real estate, the way it goes nowadays. I don't see it applying to Traverse City in any way. It's not commonly known of any redlining that has happened in Traverse City. But there is outside investment eyeing Traverse City because it's a valuable place, and the real estate keeps on growing in value. And so maybe sunset clauses on owner occupancy for any such like duplexes, multiplexes might be definitely part of the conversation. I think we should keep generating ideas and listening. And we've also heard from folks about, needing to listen more to the residents. Some people speak here at our meetings, but we don't really get to have any sort of discourse and question and answer sessions. And so I wonder what the commission thinks about hosting a town hall sort of situation. Sometime we could find a venue, a time and place, and invite the city residents to come and have discussions with us. I'm interested to hear what the commissioners think about that idea.
I can support that.
Yeah.
Aren't you already scheduled to go to neighborhood association meetings?
Yeah, so for the master plan, we will be going to various throughout the city, the neighborhoods, at the beginning of April. So we're working on scheduling that right now for listening sessions, and we'll make that schedule available to you all so you can come and sit in on them. That's for the master plan in its totality. David and I were talking yesterday, understandably, it can be frustrating as a member of the public because these are public meetings, but that means it's the chance for the public to observe you doing your business. It's not an opportunity for dialogue necessarily. Yes, they get a comment, but it's not the authentic conversation that people want to have. So that's why David and I were discussing for the issue of housing, specifically having some sort of town hall format or a couple of them so that the planning commission could have conversations with people who attend. I think people would appreciate the opportunity to feel heard and answered in that type of space.
I think that's a great idea, and maybe we could go to neighborhood meetings where people are already gathering and they don't have to make a different date.
Yeah, yeah, and just 2 weeks ago, I think it was, the Central Neighborhood Association had a meeting, and they reached out, and so on behalf of the Planning Commission, Anna was able to attend and converse with them. Commissioner Warner was there, I think Yarl.
And Commissioner
Brown,
Treadwell.
Commissioner Treadwell. So, yeah, if you guys are willing, when these opportunities come up, a lot of times they'll reach out to me. I can follow up with you to see who's willing to go and speak to them and just answer questions and hear your thoughts.
Chief Tuller.
Right, yeah, I think we're onto something good here. I really support that. I love having people sitting there in those chairs, although they're probably not real comfortable. I appreciate you being here. In our venue, it offers, public comment, but there's not a lot of back and forth, and that's what I'm really, really interested in hearing. I get probably 20 to 30 emails from probably the same 20 to 30 folks all the time, which is fine. Keep them coming. I read every one of them. But I would really like to hear about those issues other than, the big picture. Why is that a concern? Why are you for? Why are you against? I can only speak to my experience living in this town, right? I don't know my neighbors so much as far as their experience. I'd really be interested in hearing that. And, I've been working in this town for many, many years, but I've not been living in this town for that long. And we have residents that have been here their whole life in multiple families. And in hearing that institutional knowledge, that historic background is very, very helpful as well. And I had just a quick question about the map, if I could, while you have the microphone. Do we have a way to look up on there, or maybe we can plug in vacant lots? I don't
Yeah,
think there's-
because that would be in the assessor data is unimproved.
I can work on that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Very-
that would
Very
be-
good job.
Yeah, that would be very helpful to know what kind of vacant lots we have available.
I also think it's important to show at every meeting the map that we had up at the last meeting, showing the non-conforming properties that already exist in our neighborhoods. That is
And what
such,
they look like.
such a persuasive document for me. And I, for one, am comforted driving by or walking by a duplex on Union Street where I know a woman who lives and is able to live there because her son's on the other side. That's a non-conforming unit. When I walk past the estate on my block on Washington, where someone bought up 3 properties and created an estate, that upsets me. That is not the character of this place. And so, keep that in mind. That, for me, is much more troubling for what we could become than these non-conforming units that look like your house. They just happen to have two houses in them.
You wouldn't even know.
Say again?
You wouldn't even know it sometimes.
Yeah, no.
Right, it's the way it looks. So one thing I want to say about, like I said, I really support these, whether it's going to the neighborhood association or at big public meetings, but, and I don't know how we would do it, maybe we take it from what people have been emailing us, but address what the fears are. So we don't go to a meeting and say, we're here,
Beat us up. Beat us up.
Come in with, well, we've heard you say, blah, 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 and of course, hear from them some more when they're there, but at least come in and kind of know what are the fears and how can we address that from what we already know. And maybe they don't know. So we can exchange some really good information.
And understand that we all live in this city.
We're all working for the same.
No one's out to destroy this city.
We all care about the character. We all love the character.
Yeah.
We all live in neighborhoods.
We all live in neighborhoods, and more neighbors is a good thing, and will help like the businesses thrive and the city thrive overall. Our stores will be happy when we have more and more neighbors. Commissioner Shaw.
Yeah, I just want to say right off the bat, I'm still not in support of passing this whole thing as a big omnibus. I still think that we can pull this apart and address maybe not each separate issue, but some of them could be lumped together, but not all of them together. I'm also very much in support of owner occupancy, particularly for ADUs. I think that the supposedly investors aren't interested in single-family homes, and they're certainly not interested in buying a single-family home and then investing in building an ADU. But all chips are off the table when it comes to a tourist town, and I think that danger really exists. On a big note, I think the housing crisis is actually an infrastructure crisis. If we can't recruit fire department members, if we can't recruit law enforcement, if we can't recruit teachers or childcare providers, then we don't have a viable city. And we also have an aging problem in this town. And as Mr. Crothers pointed out, I love it here. I love my neighborhood. I don't want to go anywhere. Where could I go? I feel the same way. Where can I go to get the same kind of value that I have in this town I've been living in all of my life? Well, I could go to my backyard and my children could take over my house. So what we need are creative ways to diversify our housing, as Yarrow Brown has pointed out many times. We need all different kinds of housing opportunities, which we don't have because we have so much single-family housing. It's so restrictive. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks. Well, so do we have traction on the town hall idea? Are we? Yes. Is that something? How do we go about scheduling that?
We would work in our department of trying to find venue or venues that are available and stuff. I would just keep in mind that our department is pretty strapped right now with the 3 projects and community engagement we have, so it'll probably be a little later in spring before we actually have the capacity to host those properly, but we can start looking for times and locations.
I'd also like to have some content before we do that, right? I mean, right now we're saying we want to improve housing opportunities. If we're going to have an open house and it's regarding possible zoning changes, we should, flush those out a little bit and have that at our disposal at those meetings, right? Doesn't that seem right?
So then, well, we were thinking about going specifically through the details of these housing opportunities in our April meeting. Was that
Yep.
where we
Yeah, it
were
wouldn't be,
putting it?
it seems like you wouldn't want to do it before you do that.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
kind of vet it out first.
Yeah. But it helps with us first, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Have a better idea of what you want to get feedback on. To listen.
And to hear ideas.
Okay. Chief Teller.
Yeah, if I may, there's already kind of a template I thought that worked really well. It was, I think some of the commissioners may have been involved in that. When we were finding our way through our city, forest, parks and rec plan, and we had a series of meetings that were held at the library, and they were actually not proctors, but I guess mentored by the commissioners as well. And we set up tables, and there was just one or two questions at each table, and everybody switched after 15 or 20 minutes, and there was small group interaction. I thought that was very effective.
That's an excellent model, and it
Yeah,
worked
we-
very well.
Yeah, we pulled a lot of good information because people were able to, relax and just let us know what they thought about things. It was very respectful, and there were some people that were, pretty engaged, but all in all, we came away with a lot of really good information.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And just like we heard from, we read that article about North Minneapolis, we want to hear from any resources that people have. If they have ideas about, something that we should consider, please send it along. And we'll do our studying as we do, and prepare basically a direction, and then put it to the community and see what the community thinks about it as we move forward. All right?
Yeah.
Great, okay. So with that, if there's no other comments from commissioners, we can open up for public comment on this topic. Similar to the one at the beginning of the meeting, but here we go again. Anyone who wants to speak on it, please approach.
Are we timing these?
Yeah, I am.
Jim Carruthers, 218 West 11th Street. I am a city resident. I want to thank you, Ms. Mattis, for creating all this. This has been helpful for me. I've been sort of following along on my device here. And thank you for the comments about, one, not blanket, we can't lump this all together. I think we all have different circumstances in our neighborhoods and as neighbors. And thank you, Commissioner Colbert, for the idea of owner occupancy. That's very important. And I do appreciate that non-conforming map because it shows you that we have a lot of duplexes. We have a lot of multi-family housing in our neighborhoods. Not all are owner occupied, but that's okay. They're rentals, so we're going to have to figure that out.
That is hard.
And thank you, Mr. Winters, for pointing out that a lot of the side streets, at least in the central neighborhood, have already been split. And I live next to one of those split lots, and I'm fine with that. The house next to me is a non-conforming duplex. The house behind that, the lot was split, and half my backyard went to them. My concern is the lot on the other side of me is a wide lot. I don't know if I want to see 4 houses or 3 houses or whatever put there. It would make my situation very tight. But I will speak out in support of my neighbor at 620 Pine Street. We don't know why there's not a house on that corner. I've lived there forever and wondered why someone hasn't built something there, and there needs to be some concession. So why wasn't that one split, and why couldn't it be easier? So yes, I'm all for you splitting that lot because it's a beautiful lot, but a house needs to sit there. So that's one of those vacant lots in my neighborhood that really could be utilized. So thank you, but it's going to be a hard task, and it's not just going to be, it's going to be block by block, I think, on a lot of this. Like I said, I have challenges, and I like my neighborhood, I like my neighbors, but it could get really confining because it's already, a lot of density is already there for me. So, and I'm okay with ADUs. I mean, I don't think everyone should have one, but if you need one and you want one and it's owner occupied, I mean, I'm thinking about the whole idea of what Ms. Shaw said, that I might want to eventually live in my back ADU if I can build one. It's too expensive, but if I could live in my little 400 square foot apartment and rent my house out or move a family member into my house and let them live there, that's something to consider. So that's something we're all going to be challenged with in our futures. But as long as we are protecting the character of our neighborhoods, I think that's very important. That's what makes Traverse City so special. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carruthers.
Great discussion again. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to give commendation to Anna for the job she did at the Central Neighborhood Meeting. In comparison to the what you're thinking of doing with the broader community, I felt she went in there not knowing what questions. Like, she didn't have a cheat sheet, and they asked questions out of the blue. And Mitch did a great job of being in the audience, ready to look things up, to be helpful. And the chief was standing in the back, kind of as his solid presence back there to be reassuring. So between the three of them, they did a fantastic job. And if that can be replicated other places, if there's invitations to other neighborhood meetings, I would highly recommend it.
Thank you, Dr. Werner.
Nice job.
John Welch, 534 Washington. I appreciate the diligence and the thoughtfulness of the group trying to look at alternatives. I will share with you that as a community member, that map that was up there scares me for a lot of different reasons. Because I know, and many of you probably know, there are a lot of investors who would gladly come in and clear a whole block and rebuild it in order to add housing, but it wouldn't be the housing we'd want, nor would it be the character that we want. Splitting lots, if you could show which lots could be split, that would be helpful. Because as you've drawn it out, every lot could be split almost. And so you're scaring the neighbors by offering it up as a blanket. Hey, look at this, you can have 7 more houses in this block, when in reality there might be 1. So I just offer that as a suggestion as you're presenting it to the community. The maps that are being proposed are not helpful in helping neighbors feel good about it. The other thing is the owner-occupied has to be an absolute. The character of our neighborhood only is maintained if people who own the homes live in them. The other issue is that parking, all those splits that we've got neighbors who now rent. They've moved out, they've rent their homes. They've got 8 people in there and they've got 8 cars. They're just, the respect in the neighborhood is gone as it relates to maintaining those things. So just the enforcement aspect of it. And for those who have, as it's presented, there's got to be an exception process that you can allow if the neighbors agree. I'm not sure why it has to be that rigid for those unique properties that really could use another home on that. So just a couple ideas, but the biggest issue is to think that you're not going to keep the large investors coming into this community with the idea that they're not going to be interested in single-family homes. They're absolutely interested in it. Don't kid yourself. If they can make money, they're going to do it. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Christina Trogan Lamy, 1314 Peninsula Drive. I'm a city resident. Obviously, in the heart of some of these maps, the Boom District, and like everybody had some really great stuff to say, but I thought it was really just worth reiterating. I know for me personally, I have 5 million questions. Like, what does this look like? How many duplexes? I have a huge lot, next door, could it be, how many buildings could even be there? So just like a lot of questions, and just to reiterate, like it's really heartening to hear that you're willing to meet with the community and talk to them, and because I feel like I can't even get an opinion until I have all these answered, not that my opinion, I'm just one person, but until I have some of my questions answered, like how can I even come to any conclusions? But the one thing that really freaks me out is the developers and the not having the owner occupancy. Because I just, it just would make financial sense, I think, expecting people out of the goodness of their heart to build and not build the biggest property and charge the most for it is just unreasonable. Typically new builds are larger, and so they're not going to come in and build something smaller and charge smaller rent. They're going to build something as large as possible and charge the most rent. And then, I don't know. That really is my main concern. I think in our neighborhood, we do have an opportunity. We have so much land in our neighborhood, like more than anywhere else in the city, and it could be cool to utilize some of that. But I think once the ship has left the dock and we can't really bring it back, I mean, well, maybe we could, but it could, I don't know. That really freaks me out. So, and I don't think anybody thinks that I don't think we have to convince anyone that there's a housing problem, right? Like we know. Like for all, from the little guy to the big guy, it's a real issue that's literally touched if it hasn't touched you personally, someone for sure. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others, we'll close public comment. Thank you all for speaking. Moving on now to, any other closing thoughts from on?
No, just I'm really grateful for
Yeah.
the thoughtful public comment we've had tonight. It's all been respectful and interesting and informative. Thank you very much.
Yeah, here. Reports then. From the Board of Zoning Appeals, we have not met. We have a meeting coming up on, this month, the 14th or something.
Yeah.
And we'll see about that. We'll move on to the City Commission then.
I'm going to let you do that, Mr. Treadwell. I've been very chatty tonight. I'm going to shut up
Okay.
now.
Well, we had a meeting last night. We discussed a number of things, including at the end, we went forward with submitting the press releases for acquisition of land adjacent to Brown Bridge Quiet Area.
Annika Place pilot.
Yes, we did. We did approve a pilot for Annika Place Phase 2. Trying to think if we've had any planning or zoning related stuff come through, but not really.
That was the bulk.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Continuing to have discussions about housing.
Yeah.
As we're having
Yeah.
today.
It's always nice to work with the Wodick Group, and Commissioner Werner and others of us would really like some more climate-conscious building strategies, and he was certainly willing to listen and was, I think, happily informed of things that we told him. So that was a really good thing.
Yeah,
And
but
the acquisition of the more land at Brown Bridge is very exciting.
Great, thanks. The Master Plan Leadership Team.
Yeah, the main thing with the Master Plan Leadership Team at this point is that they are continuing to go through their chapters with the consultant team. The joint meeting on Monday, the 13th, with the Planning Commission, City Commission, will include a summary of the tourism workshops that were held a couple weeks ago, as well as an opportunity to have a discussion on housing as it relates to zoning. Because although the Planning Commission does a lot of the heavy lifting on that, it's ultimately the City Commission that makes the final approval. So kind of want to see where everyone's on the same page or not before everyone's efforts and time gets invested. So that should be a great discussion. Hopefully y'all get
Right. The Mobility Action Plan Leadership Team.
Just a reminder, the big thing related to that is next week's open house on the 15th from 3 to 7 at the Alluvian across the street. An open house format, so come when you can. There'll be stations kind of like we had set up at the Haggerty Center. And again, we really want to hear the public's input on the proposed network and some of the projects, items coming out of that process.
All right. The Planning Department.
Oh, it's all master plan and mobility plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enough of the announcements, yeah. And then, so then we'll move on then to public comment. Open to any other general comments. If you'd like to speak on any topic, please come to the mic and you'll have 5 minutes. I apparently have given enough opportunity for public comment, so I'll close it. Thank you all for already speaking earlier this meeting. Any other comments or any other ideas from the commissioners? With that, no? Yeah?
Just
what?
one last thing. I want to thank Warren, and I know Christine took off, and Dawn, just for coming today and sharing perspectives.
Yeah.
Planning Commission.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, yes.
Thank you.
All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
I was thinking, and we can go clear up tomorrow, but there might be a big surprise.
I always expect that to be a long night.
And the experience builder, now that I might have some more time.
I gotta get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive to Lansing.
Right, yeah, right.